Okay, so I'm going to try to make a concise overall guide to how to shop for an RG style guitar, and then also talk a little bit about tremolos. I've made a couple of over 30-minute videos on a bunch of other stuff that I'll probably edit into more concise, smaller things. But this is main goal is to how to buy a cool RG that is not a ripoff. Um, so first off, I'm using Sweetwater, which is a really cool, great company to work to buy from and stuff, but also tends to have um, really good postings and photos and descriptions and stuff. So in any case, we'll get to it. So if you're shopping for an RG, you start with Ibanez. So um, I'll lead with the lead, which is if you're buying new, a beginner instrument, I think this RG 421 is about the best you can get. If you hate the grandpa wood aesthetic, that's kind of unfortunate, but it's the cool RG, angular, all the stuff. The hardware's good. It's this fixed bridge, stable, good stuff. The pickups are fine. Tuners are fine. Goto style tuners, etc. I'm going to say a lot of stuff I don't explain in this because that's how these videos turn into 30 minutes. But overall, this is the thing I would go with. You can also find either RG421 or RG321 stuff used. That will be like this price or cheaper, like 200 bucks, 250. The bridge will be basically the same thing. It might have, you see the logos like right there. It might be a different logo or somewhere else, but overall, these things don't change that much year to year, generally speaking. You might get a good deal. I would just avoid any of the RG321 or 421 that have like a Floyd Rose locking whammy bar type of thing, but anything with the fixed bridge is probably a good choice. Not hard to maintain, and just a cool metal guitar with a good neck that plays nice and will last a long time. If I had gotten one of these as like a beginner thing, I probably would have just kept it for quite a while. So yeah, lead with this. I would get this or a used version of this or what have you. If you were gonna get a whammy bar, if you're dead set on a whammy bar, this RG550, this Genesis collection is, you see that price? That is a big sticker price. I would not go for any whammy bar less than this. I will explain why in a second, but this bridge is a really good, it's the Ibanez Edge Tremolo. It's basically a really good locking, very good hardware, all steel parts, double locking, has these locking saddle things, which I will explain some later time if you ever got one, but I know the aesthetics of this guitar are 100% 1982 big hair, poofy hair, whammy bar, Van Halen type stuff. So again, not quite like modern metal or something, but if you wanted a whammy, this is legitimately like the best bargaining point, especially for an RG like an Ibanez brand, um, because it's actually the real, like that bridge is the same thing that is on several guitars that cost $2 and $3 and $4,000 and stuff from Ibanez. Edge lock and tremolo. The hardware's all good. Your compromise is that aesthetically it's kind of plain and it's got the plastic pick guard and all that stuff. And the pickups are very just average, just Ibanez stock. So a little better than what's on this RG421, but not anything special. So that is why this is as cheap as it is, but it's a hell of an instrument. This is just cautionary tale. RG470, whatever, whatever. If you remember one thing from this video, geez, too far, too far, too fast. Edge 02 Tremolo. Edge 02 Tremolo. Do not buy anything with this on it. This is a pile of garbage. It looks okay. It might feel okay if you played one in person, etc. The day of, it might seem like it's stable. The problem with all of these bridges, and I covered this in way too much depth in a separate video, but basically when it's made from cheap metal, its ability to continue performing stable will not last. It will erode quickly because cheap metal wears out fast. That will not happen on this Genesis, and it will not happen on this because there's no moving parts. But it will absolutely happen on this, $500 Ibanez with the Edge 02 Tremolo. You'll also see, let me just, Edge 02 Tremolo in this entry. Even though this is a slightly more expensive guitar, why is it expensive? Because they put some red paint and a very, very, very thin veneer with a cool looking piece of maple, or a printed version of a cool looking piece of maple. Whatever the case is, Edge 02 Tremolo, avoid it. And now you're getting highway robbed for it just because they put some red paint on. Then you're looking at maybe some metal guitars and stuff. I'm not even going to address that one. You're like, oh, hey, this is cool. This is $1,000. Dang. This Genesis, this is also $1,000. Okay, this must be okay, right? So what they've done here is they took the $499 Ibanez. They gave it a satin black paint job, and let's just look, H02 tremolo. And they're even bragging about it here, but it's still the little piece of frickin' pot metal from Indonesia that you do not want, and now they're charging you $1,000 for it instead of $499. At least in the $499 post, they didn't have the boldness to advertise it as a feature. Where here, because it's $1,000, they need to tell you something cool about it. There's two reasons this guitar is more expensive than the three reasons. There's some wood choices, and the woods are definitely nicer on this, but they're all painted black, so you can't see them anyway. The pickups themselves definitely better. They are a specific brand, and they're really good for heavy music. That's good and stuff. And everything is painted satin black, and that is the only justifying reason for this to be expensive. So for $50 more, you can get like a real, basically professional piece of hardware with that bridge. And now, obviously, the aesthetics are different, way more 80s hair metal stuff. Or you can drop $1,000 for something that is the same as a $500 guitar. So I would absolutely avoid that bridge. But if you're going to get that bridge, do not get the one that's spray painted black, satin black. Just go find that $499 RG 470, whatever the hell, and avoid this. So those are my recommendations. This is the best beginner Ibanez period RG right here. If you can find the used ones, the 321, 421, those are great. If you're going whammy bar, this is the way to go. Obviously, that's pricey. If you're gonna get a cheap whammy bar, do not do it on $1,000 guitar like this. Reach out, consult if you need guidance, but avoid these like overpriced. This is like slimy marketing stuff. The one that's $499, it's at least an entry instrument, right? This is an entry instrument with some black paint, and that's stupid. Okay, they have a few guitars that look a lot like RGs, and let's go low to high. Let's see what we got. But they also have other cool instruments with different features. Um, you know, this doesn't quite look like an RG. That is almost like an RG for 449, that C6 Pro, and that's just kind of cool looking. Why? So I don't know. I that just caught my eye, but also very good bridge. Um, Bolted neck, that's fine. So this is a lot like an Ibanez. It just doesn't have the pointy horns. That's an option. 449 is not bad. Mahogany body. I just want to see. Is this Korean or is this Indonesia? That's Indonesia. Okay. Most things in this price point will not be made in Korea, but Schecter does make a lot of stuff in Korea. Um, your lowest end thing that's like an RG is this $900 range right here. These, so I don't know, red burst or gray burst. The red kind of shows off the contours of that instrument better. But I think if I was going to drop 900, this would definitely be on my radar. Bolted neck again. You got the kind of cool horns thing going on. That's great. Also made in Indonesia, but lots of different hardware. They got the 5-piece neck. There's some other stuff going on. And there's just other. So they have a lot of instruments that I'd say between 8 and 1200 Schecter is probably thriving at its best. But what you also have is with Schecter is if you're okay with a guitar with the rounded horns instead of the pointy horns, they have this model or the series called the Hellraiser, and I need to throw one other on there, Hellraiser Hybrid as well. So basically, this Hellraiser, Floyd Rose. What else? You got this Hellraiser C1, the Black Cherry. So whether you like the way this looks or not is going to be a very individual sort of thing. But so basically, they have a guitar with a Floyd Rose Special, which is a Korean-made, pretty good piece of hardware. It's basically almost as good as what's on that Ibanez. And the pickups are different. And if you think this looks cooler than the 1980s hair metal thing, that's pretty cool. So this is an option, right? I think they look pretty good. Maybe a little flashy with the binding and stuff, but that's fine. More importantly, crafted in South Korea. So you're in this price range now, but you're made in South Korea, which is really good manufacturing and good hardware and all that. And Schecter's pretty reputable. I'm a big fan. There's also a lot of good used Schecter options. If this aesthetic, which is kind of like modern Stratocaster, is your vibe, this could be an adequate replacement for an RG. And then they have these with the fixed bridges, which are also pretty awesome. Prices up there a little. You don't need this guitar. I would recommend that RG421 over this guitar, but still, this is like a pretty sick metal instrument, for example. Just as a counterexample, this is very similar. This is Jackson's offering that is very similar to the Ibanez 550 that I showed. The pickups are a little better. It is a neck through body, so not a bolt. So that's kind of cool. That raises the cost a little. The pickups are different. The bridge, though, is basically the same thing on those Schecters. It's like 900 bucks, and that's fine. It's just a case of priorities and kind of, do you think the shark tooth inlays are cool? It's a little more like, I don't know, just a different modern aesthetic, a little less hair metal, a little less 80s. However, we are now kind of transitioning into the whammy bar instead of the RG aesthetic, I guess, like RG aesthetic with the pointy horns and stuff. What we are pivoting to is just talking about whammy bars, right? So this Jackson and all that. If you were going to get a whammy bar, you can actually get the exact same piece of hardware that is on that Jackson I just closed out of. This $1,200 Jackson has that Korean bridge, which is pretty good. It's a Floyd Rose Korean-made steel bridge. If you go to Harley Benton, this is exactly the guitar I have, except mine is purple burst. It is not a perfect instrument by any means, but the bridge is really good and the neckwork is good, and everything else can be dealt with. Pickups are really cheap, and like the knobs and the switches, if they expire before their natural lifespan, that's like $10 each for each pot, and then some soldering and some time. The reason I'm rambling about this is if you were just desperate, if you had to have a whammy bar on an instrument, this Harley Benton is probably the best price per or quality of hardware per dollar spent that is out there, especially if you can find one used. Now, the shipping here is kind of a pain, but you might be able to find one local like I did. I got mine for $250. Everything's gone up a little bit since the last 2 or 3 years, but for $250, I got a guitar with really good hardware, and it's exactly this, just purple instead of blue. You get the same bridges on that freaking $1,000 guitar. It's actually stable, stable enough that I put my money behind it. Right. Other things that are positives: actual Grover tuners, so like real brand tuners. That is super valuable. The frets are stainless steel. That's cool. That's dandy. The bridge is good. The pickups are fine. They're plenty good for any music you're looking for. They could be replaced as well if you end up not liking them or if something messes up. And the same goes with the knobs and all that. But this might be more of a grandpa aesthetic, I guess. Even the blue one, like it's not quite as metal as some of these, but legitimately you're getting like the hardware for like less than half the cost, maybe a third of the cost even. So yeah, and this is also what's on these Jacksons. Excuse me, Charvels. It's what's on the Jackson, and it's what's on these Charvels. Schecters. Even though these are like $1,000 guitars, the big difference with like Schecter and these guys is Schecter's made in South Korea, South Korean factory. These are Indonesian made, but at this price point, you're not going to get out of China or Indonesia. But hey, good hardware. Might need a little bit of work. Where like if you bought this used, like be wary of reverb, I guess, with stuff like this. But in any case, these things are available and really good bargains. Basically, if the whammy bar is a non-negotiable, like must-have whammy bar, I would really strongly suggest looking in this direction first. And Harley Benton actually has a few other models that might be a little more metal looking or whatever. And basically, Harley Benton is the shop brand of Germany's Guitar Center, and they just randomly have some really high quality stuff that they are selling in the States now.